autophagy, reduced inflammation, and lower insulin, but not to the same extent as when you're not eating at all. Apparently, the fasting mimicking diet.
One of the most common questions cancer patients search for today is this: can fasting help me during cancer treatment? Some people hear that fasting might make chemotherapy work better. Others hear it could reduce side effects. And many feel confused, scared, or overwhelmed by conflicting information online. Cancer already takes away a sense of control. And when you're facing chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery, it's natural to look for tools that might help your body cope better. But fasting is not a miracle cure. It is not safe for everyone, and it must be discussed carefully, scientifically, and responsibly. In this video, we will explore what science actually says about fasting during cancer treatment, what we know, what we don't know yet, and why this topic is being studied so closely by researchers around the world. This is not about false hope. This is about real data, real biology, and real patient safety. What fasting means. When people talk about fasting and cancer, they often mean very different things. Fasting does not always mean starving. In scientific research, fasting usually refers to temporary controlled periods of reduced or no-calorie intake, such as short-term fasting for 24 to 72 hours, time-restricted eating, such as eating within an 8 to 10-hour window, fasting mimicking diets that provide very low calories under medical supervision. These approaches are very different from chronic calorie restriction or malnutrition, which are dangerous, especially for cancer patients. This distinction is extremely important because many cancer patients already struggle with weight loss, fatigue, and muscle wasting. Why scientists started studying fasting and cancer. The interest in fasting began with a simple observation from biology. Healthy cells and cancer cells behave very differently under stress. Healthy cells are flexible. When nutrients are scarce, they slow down, protect themselves, and enter a maintenance mode. Cancer cells, on the other hand, are driven by constant growth. They rely heavily on glucose and growth signals. When nutrients are limited, cancer cells often struggle to adapt. This difference led scientists to ask an important question. Could short, controlled fasting periods protect healthy cells while making cancer cells more vulnerable to treatment? This idea is known as differential stress resistance, and it is one of the main scientific theories behind fasting research in oncology. What lab studies have shown. In animal and laboratory studies, fasting has shown some intriguing effects. In mice, short-term fasting before chemotherapy has been associated with reduced damage to healthy cells, less chemotherapy, induced toxicity, improved tolerance to treatment. Some studies showed that fasting made cancer cells more sensitive to chemotherapy while protecting normal cells. However, it is critical to understand that results in animals do not always translate directly to humans. That is why human clinical studies are so important, and why researchers proceed with caution. What human studies tell us so far. Human research on fasting and cancer is still early and limited, but growing. Small clinical trials have explored short-term fasting, or fasting mimicking diets in patients undergoing chemotherapy. Some patients reported less fatigue, reduced nausea, better tolerance of chemotherapy, improved quality of life. Importantly, these studies were conducted under medical supervision, often excluding patients who were underweight or at risk of malnutrition. So far, there is no strong evidence that fasting cures cancer or replaces standard treatments. But there is growing interest in whether fasting could act as a supportive strategy, not a treatment itself. Fasting is not safe for every patient. This point cannot be emphasized enough. Many cancer patients should not fast, including patients with low body weight, patients experiencing cachexia or muscle loss, patients with eating disorders, patients with advanced disease or severe weakness. Cancer already places enormous metabolic stress on the body. Removing calories without proper supervision can do real harm. That is why most oncologists agree on one thing: fasting should never be done without medical guidance. Chemotherapy and the body. Chemotherapy works by targeting rapidly dividing cells. Unfortunately, this includes not only cancer cells, but also healthy cells in the bone marrow, digestive tract, and hair follicles. This is why side effects occur. The goal of modern oncology is to maximize cancer cell death while minimizing harm to healthy tissue. Fasting research aims to explore whether metabolic changes during short fasting periods can help protect normal cells during this process. But again, this is supportive research, not replacement therapy. Metabolism, insulin, and cancer. One reason fasting is being studied involves insulin and growth signals. High insulin levels promote growth pathways in the body. Many cancer cells exploit these pathways to grow faster. Short fasting periods may temporarily reduce insulin and insulin-like growth factor signaling, potentially placing cancer cells under stress. This is a theoretical mechanism, still being studied, and not a proven clinical outcome. It does not mean sugar causes cancer, nor does it mean eliminating food cures cancer. Cancer metabolism is complex, and oversimplification can be harmful. Fasting mimicking diets. Because full fasting can be risky, some researchers are studying fasting mimicking diets. These diets provide very low calories, limited protein, and specific nutrient compositions for short periods. Early trials suggest they may be safer than water-only fasting, while still triggering some metabolic fasting responses. Once again, these approaches are experimental and should only be considered within clinical settings. Nutrition remains critical during cancer. No matter what fasting approach is studied, one fact remains clear: good nutrition is essential during cancer treatment. Adequate protein, vitamins, minerals, and calories support immune function, muscle strength, healing and recovery, tolerance to treatment. For many patients, the priority is maintaining weight and strength, not restricting food. Any approach that compromises nutrition can negatively impact outcomes. What major cancer organizations say? Most major cancer organizations currently state that there is not enough evidence to recommend fasting as standard cancer care. More large, controlled human trials are needed. Patient safety must come first. This cautious stance is responsible and appropriate. Science moves forward carefully, especially when lives are involved. Mental and emotional aspects. Some patients feel empowered by fasting because it gives them a sense of control. That emotional aspect matters. Feeling involved in one's care can reduce anxiety and improve mental well-being. However, empowerment should never come at the cost of physical safety. Supportive practices should always be grounded in evidence and compassion. Fasting versus time-restricted eating. Time-restricted eating, where food intake is limited to a daily window, may be more practical for some people than longer fasts. This approach allows regular nutrition, reduced metabolic stress, greater flexibility. Some oncologists feel more comfortable discussing time-restricted eating than extended fasting, depending on the patient's condition. Again, individualization is key. Personalized medicine and the future cancer treatment is becoming increasingly personalized. Genomic profiling, metabolic analysis, and individualized care plans are shaping the future of oncology. In the future, metabolic interventions like fasting may be tailored to specific cancer types, treatments, and patient profiles. If a cancer patient is curious about fasting, the most important step is this: talk to your oncology team. Doctors and registered dietitians can evaluate. body weight, muscle mass treatment, type, overall health. Together, they can determine what is safe or what should be avoided. Hope, without false promises. It is understandable to want hope, and there is real hope in cancer care today. Precision medicine, targeted therapies, immunotherapy, and supportive care have dramatically improved outcomes and quality of life. Fasting research is part of this broader effort to understand how metabolism interacts with cancer. Cancer treatment is not only about destroying disease, it is about protecting the whole person, body, mind, and dignity. Every patient deserves clear information, compassionate care, and evidence-based guidance. And every patient deserves to know that they are not alone. If you found this video helpful and informative, compassionate cancer education. We share reliable information designed to support patients and families with clarity, respect, and hope.